Hello there, welcome back to another series of shows. This week I'm going to start with Sion Sono's Love Exposure, the 4-hour religious epic that's also really perverse and really intriguing. Now, I've been doing Sono films for a couple of weeks now, and this is the 5th one I've done. And there's still more to come. This is a whole season now, I think. Not due to any real plans, it's like, I have to see another one. Have to see another one, have to see another one. It just becomes this thing where you just have to keep on watching these films because they're so addictive. It is kind of like seeing Mickey for the first time. It's like, who is this maniac? I need to keep on watching his films, to see what else there is. And they always keep delivering because by the time you've actually found them, there's a whole backlog of films that are very intriguing. Sono's the same. Sono's got a massive backlog of films. So I've already covered Tag, I've covered Whispering Star, Anti-Porno, Love and Peace and Land of Hope. So there's been a bunch of them already on my channel to take a look at. Love Exposure was his big success that made him a much bigger director than he had been before. It was his big hit, the thing that made people really intrigued by him. And the thing is, it's a pure Sono film. It just feels like only a director with his own obsessions to make this film. It's not like a committee could not make this film. It has to be someone with something he wants, it's under his skin, he needs to get it out in some way. He has to talk about it, he has to talk about a subject in his own peculiar fashion. In some ways, Sono kinda has that feeling Almodovar has, where it's like, he's just got these obsessions and yeah, he'll use melodrama to express them, but the melodrama is just the mechanisms to express the ideas rather than the melodrama being like something he's addicted to. It's just something that is a useful tool for him, really. And some films he does aren't melodramatic, it's just some of them are. And Love Exposure definitely is. Love Exposure takes every old school technique and just spruces it up into weird perversion, That's what it is. You've got Catholic guilt as a fundamental in the plot, just like so many other films have, either expressed or unexpressed, that kind of idea of you have to be a good person, which is a very kind of a theme in runs through a lot of Japanese films. They need to be a good member of society. But you've also got people having alternate identities. You're cross-dressing. A lot of Shakespearean things of people not knowing, people all been in mass and been mis-seen by the person they love, and they have to try and sort out the confusion so they can be with the person they love. There's lots of that element in here, but it's done for personal plays. It's not done just by, oh, we're going to do a little bit of a Shakespeare thing here. It's like, no, it's an expression of the need of the characters coming through this. It's just this kind of need that this plot device works for. Because it's all based on the idea of what does religion do for you, ultimately? And it's not a track that's anti-Catholic or something, or anti-Christian. No, it's nothing to do with that. It's like the complexity of religion, how it can be good for you, how it can be bad for you, how your own neuroses can create something that gets out of control, that makes it evil, but it can also be a salvation for you if you let it be. It's like, what is it that actually drives you with religion? What is it in religion that actually has an impact on you? And the interesting thing this film does, right, is it actually takes Catholicism, Christianity, which is not a big mainstream part of Japanese culture, it's a small subsection. It's not the thing that drives the Japanese culture. Just some people are Christians within Asia, probably missionaries, but it's not a big thing. It's a small subsection of belief within this culture, and it uses that as a base. It's probably a good thing to do that way because you're following the mainstream society. You're taking what is a fringe religion and exploring it, but it also means if you're someone in the West seeing this, it's like a different culture's view on Catholicism and its strengths, its weaknesses, you know, and there's problems, and inherent problems. So it actually exists in a really nice place because it can be critical but also can show the good side of it. So it's not really, it doesn't have to have a political beef with anything. It can show what the strengths are, what the weaknesses are, and that's what it really does. But what this also allows it to do is not to hold back on the dark side of religion. The dark side of religion is there, it's pointed out in this film, and it either can be sadism, where someone's using religion for their own ends that are very twisted, or it can be someone's confused and someone's looking for direction, and they'll keep looking and keep looking as it's an addiction on its own. So you have a variety of religious themes in here, and a sort of variety of extremes really. The film starts out with a young boy whose mother dies, and he's very close to his mother, not so much to his father, but he's close to his mother. She dies, she's religious, and she passes on a belief to him, like the goodness of humanity. And his father takes the death badly and decides to invest in the belief system of his wife and actually become a priest. And as he becomes a good priest, he and his son aren't very close, but his son's a good boy. His son grows up to be a teenager who behaves well in class. He's nice, basically what would be called a nice boy. Everyone likes him. He does his best. He still kind of warns his mum. He has this weirdly weird religious thing that happens sometimes where no woman is as good as his mother, really. No one can live up to the ideals of his mother. He's got this kind of weird elevated view of women, as well as a kind of disdain for a lot of them because they're not as good as his mother. You know, this kind of Catholic thing that runs through society, and seeing it in a Japanese culture just puts it to the extreme. It also shows the absurdity of it, but also allows you to get behind it in a way it's fresh, because you can see that it's an emotional need that's been kind of twisted from a good place. I mean, there's always talk about original sin within this film. What's your original sin? And that's his original sin, but he doesn't realise it for a very long time. Like, what's really driving him? That's basically his original sin. And what happens is his father falls in love with this woman who's very wild, very over the top, very much into extreme emotions. She can't really control herself, and the father cannot control himself around her. So he ends up hiding them in a house somewhere until he and this woman break up. This father becomes very self-critical as a priest, becomes very kind of a damning priest. He starts to take it out on his son and ask him what sins has he committed. And he knows when his son's making stuff up, and he knows he demands his son has to have done sins, that no one is pure, and this creates this whole confusion in his son, like, who the hell am I then? His son thought he was a nice boy. His son had no real complexity to him. He just was a very nice person. And his son needs to actually feel like he can connect with his father because his mother died. And the only way to really do it is to actually sin properly, to sin like hardcore, which means he gets in with a bunch of criminals who have also been like disenfranchised from society. They're rebelling. And he joins basically a clique of criminals who are actually, they're all wonderful characters, they've all got like weird kinks to them. They're also, it's a case of, this is what happens to society when you elevate your own need against the needs of everyone else. Like, the middle classes have created this need for what they see as a polite society. So everyone else doesn't really fit in as an outcast. We don't want you, we're not interested in hearing your stories. You don't exist to us. But the son basically finds some freedom in this to actually sin and misbehave. When he comes to tell his father his sins, he's smiling a lot of the time and he's happy to try and connect with his father. But it's not really doing much because his father gets bored with his sins, and it's like he gets downbeat until he meets this guy whose big sin, his original sin, is he likes to take peep photos of girls' underwear as they're walking it. You know, so the camera goes below the legs and takes pictures, and they find all these weird techniques to do that. Very perverse, but kind of Catholic at the same time. And this is where the film really kicks off into utter insanity. This is where it becomes a bit more Almodovar in a way, but very Sono as well. Very much the director's riffing in conventions but doing his own thing. This point actually gets his father mad, but at this point the son is so into this. He's found his weird kink, you know, that this is his expression of his passion by doing this, to be the biggest pervert possible. Which is a great send up of the Catholic thing of purity or pervert. It's like, yeah, he can't be the purest boy, so he's the purest pervert. Then he loses a bet to his friends and he has to cross dress at one point for a bet that he lost. And then at this point, that's when he meets the love of his life, this girl that came from a bad home, who is the stepdaughter of the woman who turned his father mad. And there's all sorts of confusion as the father and his woman gets back together, so they're now kind of stepbrother, stepsister, and he's in love with her. She thinks she's a lesbian because she saw him in drag to start with, and she's really attracted to him. She thinks she's a lesbian. And all hell breaks loose because she can't stand him, but she loves his cross dressing facade. He doesn't know they're the same person. And it is wonderful because by going through that you see her passion, you see her needs as well. So she's not, in a lot of like superhero films where the person doesn't understand who the other person is, they come across as kind of sad and pathetic. Here it's about the passion, it's about what's wrong with her, what's wrong with her life. And the whole idea that he's elevated this girl who he's seen and he's in love with as this perfect epitome of womanhood. In actual fact, she's very flawed. She's got her problems. She really does have massive issues. And he has problems dealing with that. And she has problems dealing with men because her father's a scumbag. So she sees men in a very kind of stereotypical way. That they're all scum. It's like, they're never good enough. Which is why she thinks she's a lesbian as well. She just has a kind of view of men that's really weird. And he's a view of women that is really weird. And they both have to kind of get over their stereotypes. That's being twisted a little bit by dealing with the church, but also has been like given some emotional heft and support by being infatuated with the church. So it's a complicated thing. And as this story goes on, they get involved with Church Zero, which is a more sinister version of the church, which is kind of like, I think some people think it's Scientology, but it's actually just, or what people think of as Scientology. Who knows what Scientology really is? But the idea is just the dark side of the church. It's the side of the churches that make people into slaves, basically. It makes people, for your belief to work, you have to make yourself a slave to this and slave to the doctrines, and that's how churches grow and how belief is turned into the slave labour. And what that does to people, and how people's needs for some sort of salvation being twisted into something that utterly destroys them. And this is what happens to the love of his life, this is what happens to his dad, this is what happens to his dad's wife. And it becomes his need, after he's been exposed as a total pervert, to actually save the woman from this, and save his family from this, and sort of justify himself in some way. But it's always very complex, and to do that he has to actually go into the darker side of his nature and actually find himself to embrace the fact that he is a pervert. He is not perfect, he's got all these problems, and he has to accept that she's got all these problems. But it's done in a really fun way. I'm not going to get any further than that, but it's a wonderfully moving film. because it embraces the absurdity of the story, but the story is absurdity based within the kind of tragedy that happens in real life. Because one thing David Lynch said is that film can never be as strange as what you actually see in real life if you keep your eyes open. If you go around the country and see people as they behave in reality and who they actually are, it's much stranger than anything you see in film. Because film's kind of very conservative and very... They want to put the facade, it's a middle class medium basically. You need a facade of respectability in film. It's the same way in books, same way in any kind of mass media. To avoid being cut down by the government, you have to have a facade of respectability. And it takes away from the art. It corrupts the art, basically. That's the problem. And that's what this film kind of expresses in its own weird way, is the idea of the corruption of us. The society needs to make conform to something. And how it kind of triggers some of the weirdness in your personality that if you keep on engaging with it, it can destroy you. Like the father is almost addicted to discovering something new. He's almost like he can't sit still. Like once he gets good at one thing, he needs to do something else. He's got some passions that he can't really deal with when combined with his idea of himself, which is a pure person. Then when that goes wrong, he hates himself, so he takes it out of the world. Then even when he gets things back, it's still too complicated for him. He can't process it properly, and he's always going to the next extreme to try and find some stability. So he's that epitome of the middle class guy who is always trying to belong somewhere, even though he never looks at the consequences of his actions. And the consequences of actions is that he messes around his son so badly. But by messing around his son and forcing the son into this weird look at the way human nature can be, his son finds his own perversions, his own weird quirks, and by his son dealing with his girl he likes, you see her perversions and her weird kicks as well, and everyone's got them, and it's like, how do you express them and how do you deny them? Because she tries to deny them, and the woman loves tries to deny them and become conventional within this church society that's basically a cult. And it doesn't work, and he has to basically deprogram her. Which is a funny sequence because it goes to hell. You know? But basically he has to, the leading character, he has to find faith by dealing with the imperfections of the person he loves. And she has to find faith by dealing with the complexities of the person that loves her and who she starts to love, because she sees all these weirdness that before she would throw away as being something disgusting, now she has to accept as just the way reality is, just the way people are, and you have to kind of love them despite that, despite their weirdness. And it's a really complicated story about strangeness and differences of your nature that you might not be comfortable with, and also how society impacts your nature and how society twists it and changes it, and how things happen within the needs of society, nothing to do with you, that will take things from you that you don't expect and reveal things about you don't expect. And also how life can be zigzagging all over the place. Like, it doesn't go in a straight line, it goes in weird directions, and you have to, it's impacted by other people's decisions that you do not agree with, but you have to deal with, and you have to find a way to solve the problems even though they weren't created by you, but some of them were, in an indirect fashion. It's just about how life kind of spins all over the place. And I haven't even talked to the villain yet. The villain's great. There's a crazy villain who is one of the people in the church who, her father was a religious maniac. He basically turned her insane, and she's trying to make people as mad as she feels. And she's all these people who are cults to her who love her because she seems so sure of herself. But she's so sure of herself because she's mad, and she knows she's mad. And she's depressed because there's no way out of this madness. And she's trying to spread the madness through the church. And it's a really good way of looking at how the dark side of religion, of how people use it to spread their dysfunction and create diseased minds just because they're so miserable. And it's a wonderful character, and it's very twisted. But it's one of those characters you kind of have to see the film to appreciate it. It's like me describing it doesn't really tell you much. You have to see the film. You have to see the film for all this stuff because I've only explained a small part of it. It's 4 hours long, and the really great thing about the film is it always knows when it has to move on. Like, it always knows when. This bit has served its purpose, now it's time to move to the next section. So whenever a plot point has run out of the juice of what the subtext is of the plot that it needs for this point, it moves to the next bit and doesn't make you get stuck in that bit. It's always moving on bit by bit to always keep it engaging, always keep it interesting, and always be building, because it's always building on what's come before, but it's not always doing it in an obvious way. It's like things you have to interpret yourself and see the connections, but it's not telling you those connections, you just have to interpret them. One thing about Sono is he doesn't blast you full of information. You have to interpret a lot yourself. The weird thing was a lot of films I've seen of Sono beforehand always felt like short films expanded to give him space to do stylistic things. And this one, it feels like a full story. That's why it's like 4 hours long. It's just his style. He's kind of like Sergio Leone. He likes to take his time within the stories and the atmosphere. He doesn't like to rush anything. And this time he actually has a longer story, so he still doesn't rush anything, but he just creates a world that holds up over 4 hours and makes you really intrigued by it. So that's Love Exposure. I'm hoping I've said enough about it to get you interested in watching it. You can find it in Third Window Films. It's amazing. It's just so good. Just go see it, and then go see all the other Sono films. He's terrific. He's a modern, genuine Japanese master. So I'll see you soon with another video. Bye for now.